What up, YouTube? Alex coming back at you with another Starcraft 2 cast. On the top right-hand side of the map, we have our red Protoss player, AngryScot. On the bottom left-hand side of the map, we have our blue Terran player, Arto, who you may recognize at this point. This is, I believe, my third cast of his. He sent me a few casts to show off on this channel. This is a silver versus gold level matchup. Arto being our silver level Terran player, AngryScot being our gold level Protoss player. So we'll see what these guys have in store for us today. Does look like a pylon in the natural of the Protoss player, followed by a gateway. So this likely will be a gateway expand coming from AngryScot. Arto sending a scout to the Protoss side of things. We'll see that this is not going to be a cannon rush or any sort of proxy play coming from AngryScot. So he should feel relatively safe for the time being. It does look like AngryScot is sending a scout of his own over to the Terran side of things. Does see that there's no sort of early expansion here, and will get this probe into the main base of the Terran player. And unfortunately, getting this guy locked in here, this is not an uncommon occurrence if you're scouting early against Terran to have your scout locked into the main base of your enemy. And unfortunately, sealing the fate of this scout. This probe likely will not make it out alive, but we will see. Does look like this is a gateway expand coming from the Protoss player. These SCVs ganging up on this poor probe, trying to run into the wall, gets cornered, and unfortunately does not survive. That probe as good as toast. Arto has nothing to worry about in terms of sneaky pylons or proxies from that probe. We do have a Marine coming to hang out and patrol on this ramp here. We do have a cybernetics core almost finished for the Protoss player. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of throwing walls down against Terran players just because siege tanks have such ridiculous range and will be able to soften up these buildings if Terran decides to throw pressure on the ramp here. So, not the worst thing in the world, but usually I like to do these kinds of walls against Zerg players, not Terran players, because Zerg players do not have nearly the range. Zerglings need to have melee hits to do any sort of damage. So, unfortunately, buildings are more easily sniped by Terran players. We do have a stalker coming in, a lone stalker. I'm curious to see if this is going to throw down some sort of harassment here. We only have almost 3 Marines. Looks like he's just checking out to see what's up and running right back home to tell everybody what he just saw. It looks like it's going to be an expansion here in the natural location of Arto. So far so standard in terms of what we're seeing right now. There's no sort of cheese or unusual plays. We do have more stalkers coming in for our Protoss player. Looks like it's going to be a tank coming out of this factory here, followed by the double pumping of Marines with the use of this reactor here. Looks like Arto may be setting himself up for a timing push here. I do like early Marines. Honestly, I would call these guys S-tier units, especially for tier 1 units that are the only tier 1 unit that can shoot up and down and have range. So kind of a ridiculous early unit, if I'm being honest with you. Marines are just so good. We do have the wall being complete here from AngryScot, but this is all powered by a single pylon. If this pylon got sniped by tanks or even Marines, all these structures would be depowered and there would be no warp-ins in the natural location of our Protoss players. So that would be a very unfortunate scenario for AngryScot. I would also like to see a shield battery being placed to support this. Honestly, a shield battery plus one more pylon to reinforce this position would not be a bad idea. It does look like we have Arto coming to throw down the hurt on AngryScot right here. Again, the single pylon is stressing me out, man. I won't lie. I do like the position of this stalker here. is able to spot potential Terran drops or harassment, so that's not a bad idea. But right now we just have a very weak reinforcement here from this pylon. I would like to see a little bit more reinforcement from that one extra pylon and then shield battery, man. That's freaking me out, dude. Oh man, okay, but we do have the army here just hanging out. They would be able to handle what looks to be 5 stalkers, but Arto appears to be waiting for the rest of his army to come. We do have AngryScot's observer here spotting what is going to be a push. Let's see how he reacts. Throws down 3 sentries. They will be able to keep some pressure off this ramp here, but again, tanks with the ridiculous range will just be able to shoot over the force fields into these buildings and some of these units here. I do like this, though, throwing down more production, and I do like the aesthetic here as well. It looks like part of AngryScot's build is looking good. So this is giving AngryScot a lot of time to warp in right now. If Arto had hit just a bit earlier, he would have been able to take out these 5 stalkers way more easily. Looks like he's finally sieging up and will start to throw down the hurt on this position here. And as I was talking about, these buildings and units getting hit for free for a little while, but it does look like AngryScot is moving forward, sniping this tank. It was just a little too far forward. Will this second tank get sniped? And indeed, it looks like it does. AngryScot did lose a lot of his army here, though. Will be able to push Arto's army back just a little bit, but it looks like Arto is not out of the game just yet. Standing right by the base of the Protoss player here. Additional warp-in of Zealots, and it does look like these Zealots now have charge. This will help AngryScot out a lot. Zealots with charge, just such a good upgrade. We'll be able to get the surround almost like Zerglings. Able to immediately take out that tank and surround the rest of the Marines here. Luckily for Arto, none of these units shoot up, so he will be able to pick up his army. Unfortunately, a few Marauders and a Marine left behind. They stood no chance against a swarm of angry charge lots. These units will be saved. It does look like Arto did manage to escape with part of his army here. Looks like some of these units rallied to that position that they were at earlier. Arto managing to catch just a few of these Marauders before they ran into the army here of our Protoss player. Now, even though Marines, as I said, are effectively an S-tier unit, I would say Charge Zealots are also an S-tier unit. Zealots without charge, not so much. Zealots with charge will be able to close that distance of the Marines very quickly and cancel out some of that range. It does look like we have a War Prism here, followed by a reinforcement of 3 Archons, a very good unit against Bio. I do like the single Immortal here will be able to tank some of those hits from the Marauders and the tank. It does look like this command center will go down, does not get the cancel on that, unfortunately. The Charge Zealots going in to the mineral line. They are sniping this hero tank that was trying to hold that position there just for a little bit of time, but gets sniped almost immediately. The rest of the army here from Arto getting sniped, getting caught out of position. We do have the Charge Zealots happily eating up the Bio army of this Terran player here. Charge Zealot's just so good against this composition, unfortunately, for Arto. AngryScot did have a very good reaction. Does look like Arto throwing down the GG, leaving AngryScot victorious. Unfortunately, that composition was just too good against Marine Marauder tank. AngryScot did have a very good composition and reaction against Arto's initial opener here, which ultimately left him victorious. If Arto had attacked just a little bit earlier, I would say he would have been in a very good spot. There's only 5 Stalkers reinforcing that ramp there against 2 tanks and some Marines. Would have been a lot stronger, but he hit just a little bit too late. and gave AngryScot the time to react and get his zealots out and eventually counterattack and win the game. So just a bit late, I would say, from Arto, but a very good attempt on that initial pressure there. So good game all in all. If you would like to send me your cast, I would greatly appreciate it. I do have my email down in the description of this video below. And if you feel so inclined, please send me a like and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. And I'll see you guys on the next one.